Can I just ask the timing, please?
Oh, half an hour. I'll let you set the lights at your discretion. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
My name is Randall Edge, and today I want to take a bit of time to just introduce to you the world of cloud accounting and the use of a particular piece of software, that being QuickBooks Online. Cloud accounting represents a big change for anyone that's in the accounting profession. We go through this from time to time, and now we are currently in a time of transition. We are moving away from software that we buy and install on our personal computers to using software that's available to us over and through the internet, or what we call the cloud. Some things to think about, because there's a lot to think about here. First and foremost, today, in today's reality, because there's so many people using the internet infrastructure hasn't quite caught up yet to the volume of use that we've all stepped into. You can expect that working with this type of solution will be 20% slower. Has nothing to do with the software, has nothing to do with your computer. It has to do with the number of people on the internet competing for bandwidth. And that's just the way it is. And so when people are making the decision to use this software, they need to really think about the fact that you're going to be losing 20% productivity. You have high volume operations. That may not be something that you want to see. The other big thing that's really important to put into perspective is that there are no backups. For the last 30, 40 years, one of the foundation principles of any information-based system is that you can do a backup. And you should do backups often. And when things go wrong, you can restore from a backup. Unfortunately, with the cloud, there are no backups. And so one has to put this in perspective and adopt a discipline where once a year, you print out detailed audit trails of all transactions going through your books. The reason for this is that you'll need to put into a PDF format or a paper format all the detail in case, for whatever reason, your set of books become corrupted. How can that possibly happen? It usually happens when you're transferring through automated technology data into your books. So when you're hooking up a third-party application to your cloud accounting solution, you need to be wary that you may have to restart with a brand new set of books because there's no restoring of a backup. The other thing you need to put in perspective is that online data is not your data. Online data belongs to the company that's providing the cloud accounting solution for you. And as long as you're paying your monthly fee, everything's good. But if you stop paying your monthly fee for whatever reason, 18 months after you do that, all your data is purged, which means if you ever have an audit from government authorities, like in Canada, we have CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, then you will have a problem if you haven't printed out detailed audit trails before you stop making your monthly payments. So these are just things you need to think about. One of the things that's different about cloud accounting is that the software, rather than waiting for an annual upgrade of the features of your software, well, it's a little unnerving, but it continuously is being updated as you work with it. It's a bit of a change. Icons will appear out of nowhere. You go, I never seen this one before, and this feature wasn't there before, but it is now. And so that's just one thing you have to become used to. The cloud solutions are new, and by that I mean QuickBooks Online, there's Sage Cloud, there's Xero, there's Soho, there's Wave Accounting, there's a whole family of products. And all of them tend to be available at this time with fewer features than more mature desktop software solutions. And you need to put in perspective, this is changing rapidly. I mean, rapidly. Features are being added continuously. And in the case of QuickBooks Online, it is still not as mature as its desktop equivalent, but boy, oh boy, is it catching up fast. And it's scalable. And so as a result, I would suggest to anyone that's looking at QuickBooks Online, and you just need to be patient, and the features will appear given the amount of time that takes place, and it's happening rapidly. One of the great features of cloud accounting is you can do it anywhere. You can do it in your work, your home, even on your smartphone. In these times where people are setting up Sohos, there's small office, home office applications. We're reworking all our spare bedrooms into mini studios. This is attractive. And in my case, I can give a perfect example where I have a client that's a personal care home, and when the recent round of lockdowns took place, we just reverted entirely because we had moved everything over to QuickBooks Online, to where I basically do all the accounting now offline. I do the payroll offline, and it's working exceptionally well. So it offers a new advantage that was never there before. If we were still using the QuickBooks desktop that we were traditionally using there, we would be in a very awkward situation, because I would have to go in and put myself and everyone else there at risk. And this way, it's just not a problem whatsoever. One of the big attractions of online cloud accounting is that you can interconnect your books with the online banking services of your Canadian Chartered Bank. And so importing the transactions is a huge time saver, improves accuracy dramatically, and is very attractive. I'm not going to say it saves time, because instead of entering transactions, you now enter a new job called matching. And that can be just as daunting and challenging as entering transactions for the first time. I will say that for the very first time, when I hear claims that, oh, you can move your old data from the desktop version to the online version seamlessly, I'm here to offer testimony to everyone that that is true. It is astonishing how well the transfer takes place. And what's even more astonishing is all the historic data that you had in your QuickBooks desktop application is ported over to your QuickBooks Online, which is enormously helpful. So all that is actually true. Now here's a sample of the way QuickBooks desktop looks in terms of the desktop that appears to you as the user. And you're going to rapidly see, after this PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to do an online demo of how the software looks. And it doesn't look like this at all. And I want to make the point to everyone that QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online, the only thing they have in common is the word QuickBooks. It's not the same software at all. It doesn't function the same, doesn't operate the same. Some of the words the same to reference things, but not a lot. And to think that if you're an expert in QuickBooks Desktop, you're going to be an automatic expert in QuickBooks Online, that unfortunately is not quite the case. Now, in terms of QuickBooks Online, we do have words we have to recognize. It is a database program online, so all the rules for database management kick in, including that everything is managed through a process where you have lists of data. And those lists include the chart of accounts, the customers, the suppliers, as well as the inventory items. There are transaction forms, and this is the tools in which you can make entries, and they have unique new ways of handling things. Yes, they have the traditional approaches of entering an invoice, a bill, a check, a sales receipt, or a journal entry. And journal entries have improved dramatically in QuickBooks Online, but they also have added new elements. One is called expenses. Other functions, you can still reconcile accounts, no question about it. It has a simpler, easier to use system for sales taxes, and you can put in budgets, and there is not one, there are two. I don't know why, but there's two ways of doing cost accounting through one system is using classes, and there's a new method called tags, which is new. It just appeared again 30 days ago out of nowhere everywhere in the software. Of course, now reports is where you find yourself a little disappointed because nowhere near as many reports are available in QuickBooks Online as its predecessor. So you end up downloading a lot to Excel. And a little tip, the numbers that download appear as numbers, but they don't add mathematically in Excel as numbers. You have to use a function, the value function. You have to basically, in the column beside the numbers, you got to put in an equal value and then mark it to the cell, and it converts the information into a pure number that you can use mathematically. A little tip if you're going to download a report into Excel. There is an option that's available. Now, one thing about having software online is that being online means that if you walk away from your station, give it 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and they kick you off, which means you have to log on. But you do have the option of downloading a shell program, which basically permanently leaves it on your screen. So you can have the look, the feel of the desktop software using the shell. And the shell is available every time you log in. It's available for download. If you're going to use this, make sure you have a high-powered computer because it tends to slow down things even more. I tend not to use it because I'm slowed down enough by the delays in the internet. And of course, you still have the ability to design your forms, but much less feature-rich than the desktop equivalent. This will improve over time. You're really forced to use their templates, what they call a custom style form. It's just something that you get used to. Now here is a ledger, very handy enterprises, that I have set up for our demonstration today. And you will see that, wow, it looks completely different. And not only does it look different, but it also has more than one style of presentation. This is what they call the business overview. It has a dashboard. Notice that this sample ledger has very little data in it. And it has a traditional, here are the icons, pick what you want approach. Now, what's a little off-putting with this software when you start with it is it looks very, very simplistic. And unfortunately, you will learn very quickly that when you go into something, there's more options that appear as you go into something, especially payroll. Payroll looks enormously simple, but it actually is much more comprehensive than it appears. But as you use it, things appear as you use the software, So you need to bear that in mind. It also has a bit of an awkward approach to things. I mean, you have the traditional navigation bar on the left side, which is fine. Notice that along the top, there's no pull-down menus anymore. Unfortunately, the 1984's way of doing things of the drop-down menus, they've stopped. Now, you can have them if you want to download the shell. They keep them there. There is pop-down menus along the top if you really want to keep that 1985 Windows 95 way of doing things. But normally, it's just not available to you anymore. What's different is there is something called the word new. And again, it's not obvious. There's something, you have an icon, it's called the gear. So it's giving you the gear. So let's look at the gear, right? So if you click it, you'll see it automatically, a dialog box kicks in. And this is where you have the ability to change the name of the business, You can add users. Now, and this is important to put into perspective. The software will let you add new users. When you get it at first, it looks really, really cheap. $9.97 a month. Wow, is that ever a bargain? But if you want to add a second user, all of a sudden you're paying $27 a month. So now what's interesting about this is, and fair is fair, and I'm in this camp now. Every time you add a user, you're paying more a month, but if you drop a user, they actually drop your fee per month, which I was really quite intrigued with. I thought that what a great idea. So if you have a campaign where you have to enter a lot of data in a very short period of time, and you need to put in, 5 people keying data, you can. But as soon as your project is done, you can collapse the number of users. So that's really intriguing in terms of using the software. Custom styles, these are the templates that set up the way your invoices look. And one foundation concept one has to accept when you're adopting the cloud system is that everything is oriented to email. That means, by definition, every time you add an employee, every time you add a customer, every time you add a vendor, you need to have their email. It's really important. And you need to have a correct email. Having emails going to people that just trash the email doesn't help you collect money. You need to have the correct email address to the correct person who goes about paying bills. And so that's a little extra upfront time in organizing your affairs, because when you send out an invoice, you don't mail it anymore. Everything's done by email. The software is engineered to send everything by email. And we'll even tell you if you have a good or bad address. If it bounces back, it'll tell you. You need to get another email for this person. Chart of accounts exists, and there is an option to have account numbers, but that is something that's, I think, now in our past. We don't use account numbers in cloud accounting to a large extent. Payroll settings, this is where you can make some changes to your payroll. Labs are new things coming if you want to see them and get a little head start using them before anybody else, before it becomes adopted universally. And then, of course, we have all kinds of lists for customers, vendors, items, and we have a place where we can have reoccurring transactions. So if you're paying rent, the same amount of rent every month, you can have it programmed where it just adds a bill at the first of each month for your rent. Attachments and tags. Tags is this new way of doing product costing. Attachments, and this is another whole new area. Okay, and I'm going to just draw your attention. I'll leave this area alone. There's something here new called expenses. And let's just open up a supplier and just talk about this for a second. Just bear with me here. Now, I've got a vendor here and I can create an expense. Let's click that option. And one may look at this and say, well, this is very similar to a bill. And it is. A bill is something that you receive in the mail and you enter and you pay it later. But what makes this a little bit different is you're paying it immediately. So you don't have to enter the bill and then pay it. And this is the future here, where you attach the document. So you take your phone, you take a picture of the invoice, or you have received an invoice in the mail, it's a PDF, and you put it in your download box. And what's revolutionary about this whole idea is that you attach it to the entry and you no longer have to store that invoice. You can reprint it at any time out of QuickBooks Online, wherever you are. You can look at it wherever you are. You can look at it from your cell phone. Someone asks you a question about a bill that was paid, you can immediately call it up. And so this has huge implications in record retention. we've all lived with seas and seas of bankers boxes that have stored all our records all this time, but that's not needed anymore. That's not needed. You can now put all that information onto the cloud and save yourself a lot of storage space and improve your ability to find and retrieve the information when it's critically important years from now. Because once it's in the cloud, it's there to stay. As long as you're paying your monthly fee, of course. That's one thing you have to pay your monthly fee once. So it's sort of a lifetime involvement you have with paying your monthly fee. Now you can get it down as low as $9.97 a month based on the settings that you have and the number of users you have. You can get it right back down to $10 a month if you want. But that's an important thing to put in perspective. So this whole area of attachments is going to be enormously important in the future. Now, in terms of checks, if you've ordered checks in QuickBooks Desktop, you can use them in QuickBooks Online, no problem. Importing data, I'm not a big fan of this. If you're going to move one ledger over to the from QuickBooks Desktop to Online, perfect. But I'm leery when we're talking about importing data. You need to have a really strong individual with technical expertise, because if you make a mistake importing data and corrupt your existing data, you're in big trouble because there's no backups. There's no ability to restore from a backup. You have to basically, if you call tech support, they'll say, well, we'll open up a new ledger for you. But all my days in the old, well, then you'll have to fix it manually. So if you brought in thousands and thousands of transactions, you're going to have to open up each and every one and fix them manually to get your ledger back up and running. Just be really aware of that. Of course, you can reconcile bank statements. You can reconcile, if you want mortgages, you can reconcile credit cards. All that's available to you. There is an audit log to give you all the detail that's available to you. And that's a lot of the information that is available to you under the gear. Of course, under new, you can see that you can directly enter an invoice, receive a payment, an estimate, and this is one area that's underdeveloped. In QuickBooks Desktop, there's an order and there's an estimate. The two are combined into just an estimate, and just you just have to work with it. I'm sure over time that the order function will appear in QuickBooks Online. There's the credit memo, sales receipt, refund receipt, that's new. Delayed credit, that's new. Delayed charge, that's new. And expense, that's new. Check, bill, paid bills, those are straightforward. Purchase invoice, supplier credit, that's new. And credit card credit, boy, that's new. And you have the ability to print things in batches, including checks. So there we are. For payroll, same features that were available for entering time reports still exist in QuickBooks Online, and bank deposit transfer, journal entry, all these things were available in QuickBooks Desktop, and they exist in their forms here in QuickBooks Online. So in terms of banking, you can connect your bank account in your books to your online banking, and it will pull all the data in. So if there's a service charge that appears in your bank account, it'll pull it in, and then it'll park it. It'll park it. And then you have to do what is called matching. What that means is only one side of the entry exists, the banking side of the entry. And so a bank charge obviously has to be expense to bank charges expense, and you have to give it that information because it needs that so they can put it in your books. So that's a new task if you're going to connect your bank account to your ledger. In terms of just going about billing your customers, basically all the tools that you've had before, you give the customer an estimate, you convert that to an invoice, then they pay you, or you can do it all in one stage, treat your software as a cash register, that's available as well. Cash flow is where they can help you manage your cash balances. And basically I use the desktop dashboard to do that. When you're working with bringing in transactions online, matching, every time you do a matching session, I recommend you do a bank reconciliation. So one follows the other every single time. That way you keep everything on track because one affects the other. Expenses are new. Payroll is easy to use, easy to set up. But you'll find yourself when you're looking for advanced features like, how do I run a vacation pay report? How do I know how much vacation pay each employee has? You'll probably at first have to call tech support. They'll walk you through it because you have to turn on certain switches as you use the software to get access to those reports, but they're sitting there, no question about it. In terms of report, you'll notice that it's a vastly diminished set of choices, but you just basically compensate by downloading this into Excel. I will warn you that if you want to filter your data, for example, a good example of this is, let's say you have a business that's selling in Canadian and US and you want to separate the US versus the Canadian sales. Well, you'll have to do that in Excel. You'll have to do that sorting in Excel. The filter featuring just doesn't exist yet in QuickBooks Online, but give it time, it will. Taxes, sales taxes, payroll taxes, vastly improved, easier to work with, 5 times easier to work with. And it just basically, you follow the menus one by one. You don't even need tech support. I don't need to help you. Anyone can do it just by using their own common sense. They do have a place here where you can log mileage. They used to have this in QuickBooks Desktop, but there they are. In accounting, you have here the choices of the chart of accounts and reconciling accounts. This is where you do your bank reconciliations. And so those are the major features. So before I end our session today, I'll just open the floor. Does anyone verbally want to ask any questions of QuickBooks Online and how it works?
So would you consider that it's secure and safe, where it's not hackable and it's good for companies to keep up that security?
You know what, I'm sad to report nothing in the internet is secure. And if anyone thinks anything in the internet is secure, they're fooling themselves. It's like having a house. And you know what? You can have the best locks money can buy protecting your house, but that doesn't stop people from breaking through the windows. You may have all the windows with bulletproof glass, but that doesn't stop people from taking ladders, climbing on your roof and cutting through your roof into the house. It's just basically, that's the way it is. If you want a more secure solution, then desktop applications that aren't connected to the internet gives you more protection. No question about it. They're more secure because they're not on the internet. Anything on the internet is hackable. Having said that, business people have to make decisions whether or not their accounting information is that important. And I'm seeing and witnessing very quickly that people aren't terrified of using cloud applications, much to my surprise. There are a few, they're in the vast majority, and they're very, very happy and content to use their desktop application. And one client in particular, 2 partners, one was terrified of the internet, the other one really was pushing for QuickBooks Online. And after much, much debate internally, the information was moved online just because it just made all the offices. There was an office here in Regina, one in Kelowna, one in Argentina, one in Albion, New York, and one in St. Albans, Illinois. Everyone fluidly uses the software, and that's one of its huge advantages, is that remote access, equal access. You can have as many users in any location in the world, and you can turn them on, turn them off effortlessly. And it's a situation where the benefits overwhelm the drawbacks. And so it's as secure as Microsoft and Intuit can make it. But having said that, the Russians breached the American military systems using Microsoft software with Microsoft tools. So if anyone thinks the internet is absolutely secure, that's just not true. Will anyone from Russia really need to know about the bank balance in a particular company's set of books? You could make a value judgment. They really don't need to know that information. It's not something that will help them. So from that perspective, it may well be as secure as it possibly can be. Make no mistake. If you want security, stay with desktop solutions. The cloud is on the internet. The internet cannot be and will not be 100% secure. Any other questions? Well, I would like to thank you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So for this QuickBook, can this combine with the desktop and and online as well?
The answer is with the desktop application, you can get remote access privileges over the internet and get tools that will work with the desktop version. So that if you want to use QuickBooks Desktop here in Regina, but you have an office in Kelowna, you can do that. Very, very slow. Doesn't work that well, but enough that you can get by. Very frustrating for users. It's much, much better to use the QuickBooks Online solution. Can you intermix desktop and cloud? No. It's you move once from the desktop version over to the online version, and it's a one-way street. But thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Yeah. So what does online QuickBook more applicable to what kind of company?
What kind of company will use
like
software?
maybe use for personal use, like do some small business accounting or bookkeeping to a small customer.
Yeah, well, the software is completely scalable. You don't have to, once you start using it, you don't have to upgrade. It's scalable. You know, it uses SQL as a database, which means that the more volume that you put through it, the more it can cope with it. And I have businesses that literally have $5,000 in sales per year using the software. And I have businesses that are in my clientele that they're in the $3 to $5 million category with thousands of transactions a day that are using this, literally 10 users using it. And it's fine. It can cope with any level of volume, any type of business, but the features are not entirely there that you would expect from desktop software. For example, multiple warehouse locations. It's not there yet. You can do a workaround to create that, but it's not fluid. The fact that it doesn't have sales orders and estimates, it just has one. These are just illustrations that the software is young in its product cycle. It's going to get better, and these features will arrive, but they'll arrive in time. Hope that answers the question.
So what does QuickBook comparing to some other new accounting software, such as, I think I heard a lot about Xero. Is it also online?
Xero is a British-based cloud solution, and they've been very successful getting the government revenue agency, HMRC, that any VAT returns that are to be filed there must go through Xero. I've used Xero. I've used it extensively. It's on par with QuickBooks Online. I can't criticize it. If a person makes a choice to pick Xero, it's a good choice. Soho is a good choice. That's ZOHO. Wave Accounting, it's a good choice. These packages now, software packages, solutions that are available online, they're all good. There's not a bad one among them. They're just different in functionality and requires a little bit of time to get used to it. I'm personally very versant in Xero. I'm very versant in Wave. I'm very versant in in QuickBooks Online. I have not got my hands yet because our client hasn't asked me to get into Sage Cloud, but I'm sure with time I will. So it's as good as most of its competitors, and I don't really see a functional difference between Xero, Zoho, QuickBooks Online. I don't see a difference myself. Any
Okay,
other
so
questions?
so that means that Xero also can provide a similar online cloud
Yes,
accounting. Oh, okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
In North America, though, a lot of us are comfortable with QuickBooks, so there we are. It's a, and the software Intuit, it comes from the United States. It's moved into Canada, and it's very popular in North America, but not the only choice. Any other questions?
thank you.
Hearing none. Well, thank you everyone for attending our little session today. This was just a quick introduction into the world of cloud accounting using QuickBooks Online and a little quick demonstration of what the software is capable of doing. If you have any further questions, feel free to send me an email. I'll probably respond to it in the form of a podcast that I'll post on my YouTube channel. I always look forward to any questions, and I am getting questions now, and the way I'm coping with it is just by doing one of these little podcasts. So thank you, one and all, and happy accounting, especially during this fantastic tax season we find ourselves in. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Wow. Wow. I hope every